Hi, everybody. This is Noelle from Petitti Garden Centers, and we're doing a spotlight on daylilies today. And I can't believe we haven't done one yet. These plants are just such a popular perennial plant, really because of how easy they are in the landscape. But I know that their popularity has gone down a bit just because the deer like them as treats. So needless to say, we'll talk about daylilies. We'll talk about how you can protect them and all those types of things too. But they're really a fun, easy perennial plant to grow. So let's start out with all your care needs. And actually, I should talk about, daylilies. They kind of have a complicated lineage, if you will. They are part of the asparagus order, and then they have their own subfamily. So we have the Hemerocallis genus here. And it's sort of interesting, and how they got classified is they produce flower stalks or that don't have any leaves on them, and those are also called scapes. And so they kind of got lumped in with some relatives that you may know, things like red hot poker, or Nephofia, other plants like aloe, the aloe plant, and Haworthia, so common succulents that we grow and really, really enjoy. So it's kind of interesting how their lineage is sort of broken off. And everybody thinks they're in the lily family, and they used to, way back when, they used to be categorized with lilies, but they are no longer in the lily family, so just so you know. But they get their name Daylily from Greek, hemra meaning day, and kalos meaning beauty. So you get a day of beauty. But again, with their long blooming and all of their bud development, they're such a great plant to grow. Okay, there was a little history lesson. They are from, believe it or not, Asia. That's where they're native from. So Asia and also Central Europe. So they really are not native to the United States at all. But they do such a great job for us again. So let's talk about how to be successful. And believe me, it is not hard to grow a daylily in Northeast Ohio, really just about anywhere they'll grow. So to start out with, their sun requirements. So sun, they want full sun to part shade. So we can start them at about 4 hours of direct sunlight and go all the way up into that full sun category. They can take a lot of sunlight, okay? In shadier spots, they might not bloom as profusely, but that's okay. They'll still grow, they'll still survive, they'll still really do their thing, and they will do very, very well for you. Soil. They love to be in well-drained, amended soil with organic matter. I'm going to tell you that you can plant them in poor soil conditions. So clay soils, not amended, they will grow, they will develop. They can be in slightly wet soils, or I should say periodic wet soils. That's how they get their name ditch lilies, because they can tolerate that kind of influx of water, and then of course the drainage that goes. So needless to say, that's they're easy. They're very, very easy to develop in different types of soils, and believe it or not, they're very salt tolerant. So we find a lot of your daylilies planted at mailbox, gardens right around the base of the mailbox out by the street. We also see them at entrances of direct communities and malls and all those types of things as well, because they're just so easy and they can tolerate salt spray, and they don't have a problem with that at all. So this is, again, a very easy plant to grow in a lot of different soil conditions. The next thing with them is watering. And of course, we always talk about when you're establishing a new daylily, you want to make sure that you're watering at 1 inch of water 1 time per week, slow, deep watering. After you're done planting, of course, water it well. And then you're looking at that 1 inch of water 1 time per week. If it rains a 1/2 inch, you only have to supply a 1/2 inch of water through irrigation, okay? So just keep that in mind when you're establishing any new tree, shrub, perennial, lawn. It works all for the same in our neck of the woods. So look for that 1 inch of water 1 time per week. The next thing that you want to know is basically, how do I feed them? And they do very, very well, again, in poor soil conditions, but they do like their fertilizer. And so what we do with perennials is we often encourage you to feed them in the spring when they're starting to sprout and develop new growth, and you'll see that new foliage come up first. And so you'll feed them in the spring with plant tone and iron tone. And then midsummer is their next feeding or second feeding. And we often encourage to use Osmocote at that time of year, or you can, of course, use another dose of plant tone and iron tone midsummer. Okay. And that's real typical for all of our perennials that we grow. Daylilies, like I said, usually the bigger flowers or the more repetitive blooming types, they really do need that fertilizer kick, especially mid-season, to kind of keep them pushing through. So keep that in mind when you're fertilizing. As far as maintenance is concerned, like I said, they're super easy. Once you get them established, they are very heat tolerant, humidity tolerant, drought tolerant. Most of them bloom sort of late June is the starting point of when daylily season starts. And then they'll continue through those hot summer months. So what you're seeing right now is sort of an early to mid-season blooming category right now, but there are more that will continue to bloom mid to late season as well, and later on. So again, just keep that in mind, that you can have a very long daylily blooming season if you start with early bloomers and move all the way to late season bloomers. And of course, we have a lot of repeat bloomers too that will start early and finish late as well. So I'll talk to you about those too. As far as the maintenance is concerned though, honestly, deadheading for daylilies is always going to be a good thing. And that's a good thing for all of your perennial plants. If you can remove spent flowers simply by just snapping them off at the base, that's going to be really good. Again, they bloom every day, open and close. And so those flowers will be spent fairly quickly. And it is difficult to get out there every day, of course, and remove all those spent flowers. So when you can do it, it always will benefit the plant in the long run. When you have a scape that is totally spent as far as blooms are concerned, and I don't think I really have one around me, but we're just going to use this one as an example. When all three of these flowers have budded and bloomed out, and this one is actually spent, so I'm going to take that one off. But when all of these are bloomed out, you're going to want to take this entire scape and go down as low as you can go down into the foliage and cut all the way down into the fan of foliage. Don't let them produce those green seed pods. They're very, very hard capsule that will form at the top of the scape. The reason being is that pushes all of the energy, or they're using all the energy to develop seeds. And most of these varieties here, these are all cultivated varieties. They've been bred for certain traits, for certain colors, certain types of flowering looks, if you will. And so most of them do not come true from seed. So you don't want that seed development at all. You don't want that plant to, use up all that energy on seed development. So do remove those seed pods. And again, if you remove the scapes all the way down to the base of the plant, you won't have that happen at all, okay? So keep that in mind as far as your maintenance is concerned. The other thing is, these plants, the way you propagate them is by divisions, and they are so easy to divide. You literally would dig a clump of the daylilies out. You would do this in the spring or the fall. Since they're mid-season bloomers, you can divide in spring or divide in early fall. It doesn't matter which time. Dig the entire clump out. Go ahead and divide between the fans. So I'm going to show you and just pull this one up really, really quickly. But you see how the foliage develops a really pretty fan of, and you can see the central scape is blooming out of the center of the fan, but the leaves kind of face each other. So all you're doing is dividing the fans out, and then you'll see that the root system is sort of a fibrous root system with a little bit of a tuberous root to it. It's kind of what they call a spindle-like tuber. So it's sort of narrow and sort of a skinnier tuber than what you'd be used to. And I'll tell you, all you have to do is plant those tubers back into the soil about an inch or so deep, and they're ready to go. Okay, so daylilies, they really don't need a lot of space to grow and flourish in. Once they get established, they do very, very well and will kind of fill out their clump, their fans. You'll see multiple fans starting to bloom. They have this beautiful sort of arching foliage, sort of grassy arching foliage. It fills out to a nice mound. So very, very nice. And I'll tell you, daylilies, some of them can grow in a clump for a very long time and still produce and produce and produce flowers for you. Sometimes they get overgrown in that clump, and so you'll see very few flowers. And so that is a great indication that it's time to get in there, divide those clumps up, divide the fans, and go ahead and replant, okay? They take division really, really well. So daylilies are very, very easy to propagate, very easy to give to friends and family, and they just do a nice job as far as that's concerned. Okay, uses for daylilies, my gosh, you can really grow them anywhere as long as they're getting some sun to part shade. They do very well underneath trees, so shade trees that have a higher canopy, so they're still getting some sunlight underneath. They can get established very well as long as you watch that watering the first season again, so that the tree doesn't take all of their fertilizer and irrigation that you're providing. So do be aware of that. But after that first season of caring for them at the base of trees, they do very nicely. They're actually good to plant underneath black walnut. And for any of you that have grown black walnut before, it's very hard to get plants established underneath black walnut, but guess what? Daylilies can do it. So they can grow under black walnut trees, no problem. They do very, very well as like edges and obviously perennial and shrub borders towards the front of those borders. Some of them are very short, so they can be in the front. Some are sort of, let's say, 20 to 24 inches tall. So those would be kind of middle border. Some of them can get very tall scapes up to like 30, 36 inches. So those would be back of the border. So you can place those daylilies throughout a shrub or perennial border and have a lot of color. Planting the daylilies together is always really good, or I should say closer together, because once they fill out their mounds of foliage, they do actually block the sun underneath, and you won't see any weeds underneath them once they fill out and develop. So it's a great plant to kind of plant in areas that you don't really maintain too often. You don't have to weed those areas once their foliage gets developed. They just grow and fill out and basically shade out all the other bad plants out there, so the weeds out there. So keep that in mind too. I mentioned already, these plants are heat and humidity tolerant, drought tolerant once established, no problem whatsoever. Do very, very well in urban conditions. So you might see them right down the middle of, tree lawns, sidewalks, all those types of things in the city. Again, just very, very easy growers. They also are pollinator attractants, especially for your hummingbirds and your butterflies. The reason being is that flower produces a really beautiful tube down below. So tubular flowers we always talk about for pollinator attractant. And then they kind of produce this cup. So tubular throat and then a cup of petals and a very large trumpet flower, obviously. So those pollinators are always going to be able to find nectar deep within that flower. And that's always really nice for them. Some of the daylilies are fragrant, not wonderfully fragrant, not like a oriental lily, let's say, not like that. But there are slight fragrances here and there. And so I'm getting a little bit of burst of perfume this morning with so many different varieties behind me. And it's really, really nice. I'll also say cut flower wise, you can use them as a cut flower. But what you want to do is you want to look for those buds that have gotten very, very thick and look like they're going to open. You want to go ahead and cut them, the escape, in the morning, and go ahead and enjoy those flowers. And as those big buds open up, you'll have those flowers for that day or so, okay? Another thing that I wanted to mention with daylilies is there are just so many different cultivars. So I read when I was doing some Google research is that there's up to 110,000 cultivated varieties of daylilies out there. And breeders have been breeding for a very long time. So there are a lot. And everybody has an idea of what their favorite is. And what we grow at Petitti's, we try to grow more of the newer varieties that are kind of repeat blooming, award-winning varieties, those types of things, so that you can come in, get a lot of different color selection, as you can tell behind me. And that's one of the fun things is when you are making a colorful perennial garden and you want a rainbow of color or you just want to stick to a specific color palette, there's usually a daylily that will fit that bill. So again, just a lot of different varieties to choose from. What else about daylilies, Taylor? I think I've kind of hit everything except for the deer. So most of the time, daylilies do not get bothered by rabbits. I haven't seen very much groundhog damage on them, so they really don't have a problem with those two. But deer are definitely an issue with daylilies. And a lot of people will say, well, hey, my ditch lilies, my orangey yellow ditch lilies that grow everywhere, they don't seem to get bothered by deer. And it's just the matter of you probably have a lot of ditch lilies and you don't see the damage occurring to them. But again, they will eat the flowers, the petals. They won't go too far into the scapes. It's a little bit woody for them. But you will see some foliage damage here and there too. So what we normally recommend as far as deer resistance goes or deer protection goes is that you start early in the season with a granular repellent, and you put that granular repellent around the daylily foliage and so forth. So when it starts to push up, they don't get a lot of damage from browsing at that time. And then when you start to see your scapes moving up and growing up, that's when we start to get the liquid repellents out and we start to spray. Make sure that you mark your calendar for spraying, of course. There are many choices for liquid deer repellents out there. Anything from Plant Skid, which is our number one recommendation, to Bob X, to I Must Garden. So there's lots of different flavors, if you will, out there. It just depends what you can tolerate, what you like to use. So there's a lot of different choices out there. So I do recommend exploring what works best for you in the long run. You can always use a barrier as far as netting is concerned or fencing around the daylilies as well. It just kind of depends what you're able to, use out there in the garden and what works for you too. Okay. Let's talk about varieties because, again, there are so many different types. So I'm going to introduce you to some of the daylilies that we have, and there's just so many beautiful types. In the back here, this is Prairie Blue Eyes. And remember when I was talking about a rainbow of colors, daylilies really do have some beautiful colors all through the rainbow range. This is typical of one of the blues. It's more of like a lavender blue, if you will. Very, very pretty, typical daylily. The top three petals right here, those are true petals. And then the bottom three down here are called sepals. So sometimes they curve down and the top three petals are really, really exposed. Some of the petals have a really showy midrib. So you see that right in the center there. It could be raised. It could be sort of indented as well. And also look at the petals. Sometimes they have a really pretty edge to them. It could be curled, ruffled. I'll show you Space Coaster because Space Coaster has a really, really ruffled edge as well. But so that's what you're looking at with the daylilies. They often talk about the throat color too with the daylilies. So Prairie Blue Eyes has sort of a greenish yellow throat to it. And of course, just lovely. And it does have a slight smell to it. It's very, very light, but perfumey, very nice. And there's also such a thing with daylilies and daylily breeding. This is a diploid daylily, meaning that it has double chromosomes, but a lot of the newer varieties are what they call a tetraploid daylily, where they have 4 times the chromosomes. And so they have these really, really showy, beautiful flowers, more vigor, perhaps more repetitive bloom, all of those types of things, a little bit better disease resistance and those types of things. I should really mention that daylilies don't have a lot of issues out there. They really don't have a lot of insect or disease problems. But every once in a while, you might see maybe a little bit of rust on the foliage, and you simply remove it. They produce a lot of foliage. So if you can get rid of that rust, which is a fungal disease, and just try to keep that foliage clean as possible, normally you don't need to worry about it through the growing season. At least here in Northeast Ohio, we really don't have a lot of disease issues with them. If it's a wet season, you might see slugs here and there, so you'd want to remove those. You can put like slug magic around the base of them to keep the slugs off. But honestly, not a lot of problems with daylilies out there. So again, okay, so Prairie Blue Eyes. I wanted to show you a repeat blooming daylily. This one's called Pardon Me. And Pardon Me is kind of a deeper red. Smaller flowers we tend to see with the repeat bloomers, a little bit smaller flowers, but packed with buds. So when you look at the scapes, look at all the buds. There's probably 10, 12 buds right here on one scape with Pardon Me. So that's what you really see. And Pardon Me, again, repeat bloomer, kind of starts early to mid-season, and then will kind of repeat through the end of daylily blooming season. Happy Returns is right here. It's a beautiful lemony yellow. Happy Returns is a very popular repeat blooming daylily. I feel like the repeat bloomers are also fairly compact as far as their stature is concerned. So you might see them grow to maybe 18 inches tall when they're blooming. Sometimes when a daylily, again, grows in a pot, and I should have mentioned that, they are excellent container plants, perennial plants. They'll last in a pot for a very long time. And Taylor and I were picking out Happy Returns down here, and Happy Returns has been in the pot for a few years. You can see quite a few fans down here. So it probably got, 3 or 4 years maybe in this pot, and it's doing great. So needless to say, can stay very compacted for a while and still produce a lot of blooms for you. So that's something to keep in mind. This beautiful purple down here, and I'll show you the dark one too. This beautiful purple down here is called Sherry Harrison. This is an older variety, but very reliable, has some repetitive bloom to it, has a light fragrance as well. So if you're looking for kind of the purples, the violets out there, really pretty, sort of a greenish throat on her, really pretty white midrib as well. This one right next door to it is called Black Stocking. So again, remember, talk about the rainbow of colors, and it can go very, very deep. This is almost like a chocolatey, velvety, purple, deep purple brown, bronzy brown. Really beautiful. Look at the ruffle on the edge of the petals. Beautiful yellowish eye. Very, very attractive, very dark color. And I should mention as well, dark colors in daylilies, you want to put them in that sort of partial shade or lesser sun condition, because the darker colors are going to absorb sun so much more, and it'll make them bloom out much quicker because they'll heat up, obviously. So try to put your darker colors in maybe a little bit less sunlight so you can conserve that color and have those buds and flowers a little bit longer for you as well. So Black Stocking here. This is Rosie Returns down below. Oh, no. This isn't Rosie Returns. She's over there. I'm sorry. This is darker. This is called Salome Royal Prince. And again, if you really get into daylilies, this is also a repeat bloomer here. You can kind of see all the different colors. Sometimes there's banding or a different color around the eyes or a halo around the throat. So there's really some beautiful coloration when you get really, really close to some of these flowers. This one is called Lusty Leland. It's really pretty, kind of an unusual type. It has much longer petals than it does sepals, and the sepals kind of curve backwards. So it's really bright and beautiful there. Beautiful red. This one is called Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And literally it's because the breeder spent so long trying to develop this flower and all of the beautiful characteristics with this flower. And again, you kind of see that halo of sort of raspberry pink on the inside. It's a beautiful red color on the outside, a little bit of a white pickety edge, scalloped edges on the petals too. So again, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, very, very ornamental, very pretty. Rosie Returns is down below here. So you can see she's sort of a lighter red, almost like a pinky red. Has a little bit of that eye band around the petals and the sepals there. So really pretty, good repeat bloomer. Rosie Returns is part of that Returns family. So if you see Happy Returns, Rosie Returns, you know that they're repeat bloomers. If you see Stella d'Oro is the classic repeat blooming daylily. Taylor's going to show you a picture because we're actually, none of them are in bloom right now. And that just means they've already gone through like a major bloom cycle. They're sort of repeating and resting right now, and there's lots of buds on them, but none of them are blooming at this moment. So we can't show you right today a Stella d'Oro in the nursery, but they are, again, just a classic repeat. And so the purple d'Oro, that was right. Where is purple d'Oro? Oh, we didn't have that one either. Sorry. So needless to say, if you see d'Oro on the end of the daylily name, you know those are going to be repeat bloomers as well. Okay, very good. As we keep going, Doubleicious is this beautiful, oh my gosh, doubled flower. So you can tell sometimes the flowers, again, have that 3 petals, 3 sepals. So that 6 kind of petal formation, if you will. But the doubles, look at that, how they have the anthers on the flowers have turned into that petal. So this one is sort of, the veining is kind of a rusty red, orange, tangerine color that is so beautiful. Doubleicious is really big and bold. I'll show you Jones Senior as well. This is one of my favorites. This is an award winner. This is an older daylily, but just such a great bloomer. Has this creamy white color to it. The flowers are rather large, but beautiful, super showy in the landscape. This one always attracts attention, has a green throat on it. It's just really gorgeous. And I'm kind of looking, there's some panicle hydrangeas in the background. They kind of match that sort of early panicle hydrangea color, that sort of soft limey green color. They're really gorgeous. So this is Jones Senior. Love this one. Award winner. Down here, or I should say back here, look at this one. So this is actually called Primal Scream. Primal Scream is another award winner, kind of an unusual type flower, very thin sepals, kind of a ruffled petal on that with some orange and yellow and red. So very pretty. That's your Primal Scream. And it's also a taller one. And then look at this one back here. Talk about the detail. So this is, I always get this wrong. It's Space Coast Starburst, okay? And Space Coast, look at the ruffles and the edges on these petals. They're just really ruffly, knobby, just really cool. There's a lot of color, subtle color in this plant. Right now, it's sort of kind of a lighter pale apricot color, some yellow, but it's considered to be like a light pink lavender with yellow blend. So it really is a unique flower, really, really beautiful, and just very, very showy. There's some repeat bloom on this one as well, a little bit of fragrance on this one as well. So so many different types. And down below here, so the ones closest to me, Cosmopolitan is going to be what they call a rounded flower form. Has this nice kind of rounded, beautiful little flower, but very, again, very profuse. This is going to be a repeat bloomer for you. Sort of a light red, pinky coral. Has a nice ring around the central throat there. Yellow throat, really pretty. And then look at this one. This is Persian Ruby, and I love the color on this again. Very dark, unusual flower shape, sort of a greenish throat, but deep burgundy red on this one. And you guys, I had to show you this. I knocked the flower off of Bella Lugosi, and I wanted to show you they're kind of similar as far as their shape, coloration, that type of thing. But this is Bella Lugosi. It's a little bit smaller flower, not as open, not as red, a little bit more purple, but still really, really beautiful. So it's another kind of mid-season bloomer out there too, okay? So lots of daylilies to choose from, folks. Very, very easy perennial plant, very reliable perennial plant to grow for us in Northeast Ohio and a lot of different places. They are in prime bloom end of June, July through the month of July, typically, sometimes into August with some of the repeat blooming types. They are very easy to grow in just about any type of soil. Sure, they like it well drained and amended, but you can throw it into a lot of different poor situations and they will do very well. Make sure that you establish them that first season with good watering, 1 inch of water 1 time per week. Make sure you're fertilizing spring and midsummer on your daylilies. And I should have mentioned with the foliage, you can go ahead and cut back the foliage in fall. Once it yellows and browns out, go ahead and cut it down to the ground if you like, or you can leave the foliage on the plant. Believe me, it's one of the easiest plants to kind of rake through the garden during spring cleanup and pull that foliage right off, and it'll clean up just like your fall leaves as you rake through the garden. So that's really easy too. Lots of uses for them. They can grow just about anywhere in sun to part shade, and enjoy.